Okay, we're going to do something a little bit different. Chris did a fabulous power rankings last week, and Eddie did those great ones back a couple weeks ago, so I felt like it was my turn to step in and do them. I didn't really feel like writing anything, so I feel like I'll throw a little video up there, and you guys can enjoy this, hopefully. Alright, so I'm just going to go team by team. Not really going to rank them as much. I'm just going to have a little discussion on each one. I'm just going to go through right down from record. So this doesn't necessarily, this is just the record that we have in the standing. So obviously based on points and the ones who are tied. So number one is Eddie. Obviously monster team, really with the three wide receiver combination, the A.J. Green, the Roddy White, the Brandon Marshall. He's just really in a great position. Cutler's injury hurts him because Marshall, Jason Campbell throwing to him is a lot different than Jay Cutler. So, Matt Ryan's been great. The Doug Martin-Ridley combo is really good, and he also has a lot of depth here. He's got, McFadden, who he doesn't even need to start yet. It's kind of one of those guys that if he comes back for the playoffs and he gets his old mojo back, he can be great. And then even like LaShore and McGahee, LaShore's his fifth running back, has no chance of sniffing the field, and meanwhile on a lot of teams he'd be the 1 or 2 running back. So right now he's ranked number 1. He's got the Doug Martin's the number 1 ranked running back, the number 1 and number 2 A.J. Green and Marshall receivers, the number 3 quarterback, the number 7 running back, and Ridley. I mean, obviously it's a tremendous team. So number 2 is Jimbo's. Looking at Peyton, RG3 at quarterback is pretty much depth unlike we've ever seen at the quarterback position. He has a pretty much interesting decision every week who to start there because they're both top 5 guys. Really interesting trade went down this week with Jimmy trading Calvin Johnson and Sproles to Christopher for Marshawn Lynch. And then Calvin Johnson went out and had the best game of the year for him. So, but the thing why Jimmy could do that is because he had tons of wide receiver depth. He still has Vincent Jackson and Decker and Mike Wallace and Cruz. So he is another one who's going to have a lot of tough decisions, although with Roethlisberger out, Wallace probably goes to the back of the line. No chance of him starting. But what's interesting is what Jimmy's going to do with a full lineup, because he's got Rice and Alfred Morris and now Lynch. I mean, those are 3 pretty much must-starts, I guess. Obviously all monsters. And then you're going to have Vincent Jackson, Decker, and Cruz. I mean, really, he's going to have to bench one of those guys. And all 3 of them are in the top 12 right now overall. And, I mean, Decker, this week notwithstanding, has been just on fire. So he's going to have some really interesting decisions. In addition to quarterback, he's going to basically have just really good problems to have, but problems on who to start. I now pronounce you Luck and Larry. I enjoy this team name. Christopher, you're finally going to get some positive things said about you in the power rankings, because your team is really looking quite good now. Luck, so Vic went down, but it didn't really hurt him because, and I knew this was going to come back to haunt me when I took Rivers over Luck at the draft. I was wavering back and forth. I went with Rivers, and I cut him 3 weeks later. So Luck, has been tremendous, 17, 18 points every week, and then with Bush and Gore, he's got a real strong foothold, he's got a real strong running back core. He, picks up Sproles in the deal, so it gives him, when Sproles comes back, a good back. Sproles is not going to play over Bush or Gore unless it's some kind of perfect matchup or an injury, but it gives him some injury protection. And then when you go Reggie Wayne, Calvin Johnson, Larry Fitzgerald, I know Fitzgerald hasn't been great. I still consider him a top 10 wide receiver. Calvin Johnson, I would say, besides A.J. Green, is probably the number 1 guy to have the rest of the way. And then Wayne, I criticized that trade when Chris made it. At least in my head I did. I thought he gave up too much, but I mean, I gotta say that I was wrong there. Wayne's been well worth a 4th and a 7th, right now. Wayne's been tremendous. Luck loves him, and this week, Luck and Wayne versus the Pats, I could see them going for like 35 to 40, the combination of those 2 together. So Chris is in a pretty good position here. Next we have Cam Juice. Kevin has a glaring hole at his second running back position. He's got Cam at quarterback, McCoy running back. It's a great start, and his wide receivers are okay with Torrey Smith and Steve Smith, but the Jennings injuries really hurt him. Blackman has been a bust, and then his other wide receivers are Steve Smith and Jeremy Curley. So, he's he's done it with smoke and mirrors. Kevin has, but he's sitting there at 6-4. He lost to Quirk this week, but he's still in a good position to make the playoffs, so he can get go at least 1-2 over his next 3 games. So he can and probably will do that, but again, this is that running back 2 is just a huge hole with Isaac Redman getting the start this week. Garrett Reed's anus pills. Joe's team, his top 3 are arguably the best top 3 of anybody. I mean, there's some teams that like Jimmy and Eddie's team have you could say theirs is pretty equal, but Rodgers, Richardson, and AP. AP's been unbelievable. Rodgers has been back to his normal self, and then Trent's been tremendous in his rookie year. Joe's also looking at Demaryius Thomas. Denarius Moore was a very sneaky pickup. He's been very solid, and I look for him to have a big game against the Saints this week. And then the next is after that. Joe's kind of he doesn't really know what's going on. I mean, I look at Felix Jones. Marco Murray's a week or so from coming back, so that's going to be a guy that he can't really start. And then Bo's been quiet, and then the rest of his team is pretty thin. So I like his core 4-5 guys. Mike Williams on Tampa Bay has been very solid. Heath Miller's been solid, although again the Roethlisberger injury kills his value. So it's really going to come down to whether or not Rodgers, Richardson, and AP can carry this team, which I think they can. I think he's a very scary play in the playoffs. Only one came out of fourth place for Florio. This team is poised for a run because of Maurice Jones-Drew lingering, coming back. Matt's 5-5. He's probably going to make the playoffs with this team if he can beat me this week. But Stafford, and then Foster, Maurice Jones-Drew, Chris Johnson. Boom, 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 right down the line. That's a tremendous, tremendous group. And then he's going to start Julio Jones and either Colston or Andre Johnson. So again, that team could win the title. It's a matter of getting in and getting hot at the right time, as a lot of times this is with fantasy. Zach's team is just extremely thin after the top 3. You got Breeze, you got Gronk, you got Jamal Charles, who I think they're kind of realizes, they got a guy they got to give him 25 touches a game. He's phenomenal. So those 3 are great, but then you have Bedard's Green-Ellis, averaging 7 a game. Miles Austin, Des Bryant, Steve Johnson, and Anquan Bolden. The wide receivers are really thin. There's not, for a 10-team league, it's pretty thin at wide receiver. Again, it's a lot of it's going to be whether or not like a guy like Des Bryant can get hot and become a top 10, top 15 guy the rest of the way. Now or never for Brian. His running backs, he thought he had it straightened out when he picked up Alex Green and Bradshaw turned around, but then Bradshaw's been kind of quiet. Turner's been miserable. I believe he had 13 carries, 15 yards against the Saints defense, so that's terrible. He has Forte, but again, I think the Cutler injury hurts him too. What he's going to hope for is Forte getting a lot of those checkdowns that Jason Campbell loves to throw, because Campbell can't really throw downfield at all. He really needs Jordy Nelson to come back too. If he's 3-7. I think 6-7 could get into the playoffs, but this week he's playing Georgiewicz with no Peterson, which is nice. But he's gonna need that Welker, Macklin, Jordy combo to assuming he plays Jordy Nelson if he starts. He's gonna need him to have any chance. My team, quite an underperforming year for my group. Marco Murray's, been out pretty much the whole year. Forte was all right. I, went for the home run, traded him for Knicks. And Knicks had a pretty good first game, but didn't get in the end zone, and